course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information you've received from him?
No, absolutely not. Okay.
Announced. So either Paul Pelosi somehow knew this is just the right time to buy
that
Microsoft,
you're not still
or
also
perhaps
profiting
his
off that
wife,
insider
the House
information
Speaker,
too.
knew that
So
that
I don't know.
contract was
It's a
coming
messy
down.
thing to get
Nancy
into.
Pelosi is the perfect example of what should not be happening in
Because
D.C.
this is a free market and people, we have a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
Insider trading, an age-old tale between the rich politician and the average investor like you and I. Aside from good looks, open-mindedness, humility, and morals, what separates the rich politician from you and I? Well, simply put, information. Prompt, timely information. It has proven to be one of the most valuable assets across the world today, and the commoditization of it started long ago. But don't take my word for it. 40th President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, said it himself: information is the oxygen of the modern age. How about former Prime Minister of the UK, Benjamin Disraeli? As a general rule, the most successful man in life is the man who has the best information. So if two former leaders of international powers can agree on it, I'm sure you and I can meet somewhere in the middle. Yes, information is important. What does this have to do with insider trading, you may ask? Everything. And although the definition of insider trading seems to be pretty self-explanatory, some people have found a way to expose and manipulate the gray areas. No, you know what? That's too generous. Some people have found ways to take advantage of the black and white that are so incredibly obvious and unfair, but they are protected from punishment regardless, almost as if they are above the law. But we don't make assumptions. Let's look at the data. What has powered Pelosi's remarkable jump in wealth over the past few years? Maybe they are honest after all and just stringing together a few good investments. Nancy and Paul Pelosi are no strangers to intense social media scrutiny regarding their investment timing. For those of you that don't already know, and for important context, Nancy Pelosi is a US politician that is involved in many, you could say, confidential government decisions, and ones that you could argue would be considered insider information. Her husband Paul is a financier, head of an investment firm. In other words, he recognizes and understands great investment opportunities. So Nancy gets unlimited access to non-public information before virtually anyone else on the planet, while Paul trades stocks for a living. I think you can see where social media is going with this one. But with the Stock Act of 2012, it would be highly illegal for Nancy Pelosi to personally trade based on her knowledge, as this bill prevents members of Congress from trading stocks based on non-public information gained from Capitol Hill. However, her husband is no politician. Based on the Stock Act, Nancy is simply required to disclose all of Paul's financial activity within 45 days. So if you want to simply copy his investments, you'll have to wait for some time after. Trust me, I've tried. But because of this disclosure agreement, we can track trades of any member of Congress. Simply go to house.gov, financial disclosure database, enter Pelosi in the filing year of choice, and voila, you have yourself all the reports you need. First, before we invest any specific investing activity, does it even make sense to speculate insider trading? Insider trading should increase performance, and therefore relative performance will give us a simple answer. Do the Pelosi's outperform the market? When annualizing their rate of return, Pelosi's have slightly outperformed the market over the last 4 years, as well as legendary investors Warren Buffett and Ray Dalio. So they are clearly doing something right. Although if you just threw your money into the overall market index, you'd only be trailing slightly behind, and you would have outperformed both the legendary investors. So not as great as I would have suspected. First thing, let's be fair. We can't shame anybody for wanting to own Microsoft at any point on any given day. They are the second largest company in the world by market cap and have one of the best track records of any enterprise in history. Microsoft 365 Suite, Windows OS, Internet Explorer, Xbox, computers, AI, Azure Cloud, they cover it all. However, the timing of this purchase did seem a little fishy. Paul Pelosi bought about $3.5 to $5 million worth of Microsoft shares less than 2 weeks before Microsoft announced that they had been awarded a lucrative government contract worth just under $22 billion. The contract called for Microsoft to supply US Army combat troops with augmented reality headsets. Now, like we mentioned, never a bad time to buy Microsoft, but the timing of this investment is ridiculously impressive. Congress was heavily involved in the Microsoft Army deal, addressing the Army's needs for advanced augmented reality headsets for training, night vision, and other capabilities. The stock jumped about 1% following the announcement and rallied over 12% in just the subsequent 9 sessions. Before we move forward, we need to address something that the news and social media has wrong. After looking through a number of Paul's previous trades, his investing style seems to be pretty clear and consistent. He likes to buy deep in the money, long expiration call options and exercise them on the expiration date. This isn't an options course, and I'm not going to bore you with the technical jargon, but just think of this investment strategy as a form of leverage. Incur a little bit more risk up front, but if the trade goes your way, reap greater profits than if you were simply holding the stock. So, on the surface of the disclosures, it appears that Paul bought $5 million worth of Microsoft 2 weeks before the big announcement. However, this isn't the full story. You see, Paul placed this trade in February of 2020, and if you know anything about call options on the expiration date, you have the option of selling your position or exercising it. In other words, buying the shares. So Paul didn't just buy on a whim in March 2021, he placed this trade 13 months before the official Microsoft Army contract. It is unknown when exactly the Army began talks of the AR headsets. Nonetheless, Microsoft began development in November 2018 and initial testing began in March 2019, so far before the official announcement in 2021. This partnership was already in action, albeit speculative, but it was public information. Nobody knew how large this contract would be, and you could argue that Paul did receive this information before it was public in 2021, but in any case, Paul was entitled to the purchase of 25,000 shares, regardless of the announcement or not. And keep in mind, at one point his position was down by more than 20%, the COVID lows, but he continued holding. Between the time of purchase and Nancy's latest filings, there is no sign of any Microsoft selling, indicating that Paul's full position is most likely intact. At first glimpse, this trade does appear highly suspicious, and I agree, but I don't think social media and the news portrayed the full story. So this one looks like a solid trade, and anybody could have pulled it off. But this is just one of many. So on to the next one. Social media and news headlines were all over this one and attacked Paul for what seemed like impossibly good timing yet again. Just a week before Paul's trade, Congress had advanced a series of antitrust bills that would limit the power of tech giants, including Google, Apple, Amazon, and others. Many investors were spooked by this news, nervous that Google would be more heavily regulated, practices more closely monitored, and worst case, broken up into smaller companies. Obviously not a tailwind for the stock. But if there's anything you need to know about Congress and passing bills, they can take years, even decades, to come to fruition. Antitrust bills in particular have been in talks for the last 20 years. So naturally, investors tend to look past these initially intimidating headlines. And again, as far as this trade goes, none of this even matters. You see, once again, Pelosi bought these calls in late February 2020 with a date of expiration of June 18, 2021. Whether Congress passed the bill and brought the regulation hammer down on Google didn't matter. Pelosi had to exercise the options or sell them on this date. Pelosi has sold 3/4 of his position since June 2021 for a multi-million-dollar profit. And this is actually pretty impressive considering he sold at nearly the lowest price of 2022. Once again, Pelosi held his options through the brutal COVID crash, being down as much as 27% or more on his position, and later exercising his options after a long and bumpy ride on June 18th. He rode this position to the top of the market cycle in 2021 to the lows of 2022. Just food for thought. Again, insider trading seems unlikely here, but we still haven't addressed the elephant in the room. The stock market darling of 2023. After many years and many trades that sparked insider trading discussions on social media and Capitol Hill, this one might have garnered the most attention. Just 1 month before the federal government placed restrictions on Nvidia doing business with China and Russia, Pelosi unloaded 25,000 shares, his entire Nvidia stake, saving himself about another 20 to 30% in losses to the 2022 lows. However, following Pelosi's big sale, Nancy and Congress went on to announce the CHIPS and Science Act that would provide $280 billion in funding to boost research and manufacturing of semiconductors in the US. Nvidia. You may say this was bad luck. Ha, Paul, you missed out on 175% gains, another 6 to 10 million for your sorry selling near the bottom of the 2022 market and taking a $340,000 loss? F***ing rookie. No. Actually, Nancy claims this was all according to plan. When asked about the sale of Nvidia, Nancy stated that Paul decided to sell the shares at a loss rather than allow the misinformation in the press to continue. I'm gonna be honest, this one confuses me. If you weren't guilty of insider trading in the first place, why would you have a need to justify your innocence? It reminds me in a way of the little kid that stole a cookie from the cookie jar. But the guilt is just so overwhelming, so heavy, that he can't help himself but apologize, even though nobody asked in the first place. To me, this looks like the guilt became too much for the Pelosi's to handle, and more or less an admittal to insider trading. But of course, this is just speculation. This one was quite the head scratcher. We've done a deep dive on some of Nancy Pelosi's most scrutinized investments, and she's only the 7th richest politician in Congress. Although social media directs all of the attention to the Pelosi's in particular, their market outperformance of less than 1% is not super telling. It seems there may be far more obvious signs of insider trading happening right under our nose. I don't know about you, but outperforming the market by over 70% should raise some red flags. In 2021, Congress outperformed the market over the span of their trades in particular. Members have disclosed buying crypto while actively drafting crypto regulation, buying defense names when on the board of defense budgeting, buying EV stocks while sponsoring proposals for EV tax credits. The shady behavior goes on and on. So although the Pelosi's are the laughingstock right now, there are plenty of other instances that are far more revealing. And although there is constant talk of further regulation taking place both within the investing community and on Capitol Hill itself, Congress has always been slow to implement new law. And I speculate this will be especially true if it comes to their own finances. What do you think of Congress? Is the wealth of hypocrisy true? Do they profit from insider information? After all, they make the laws and monitor themselves. Unfortunately, you can't help but think that natural human psychology and conflict of interest may get in the way of moral law. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.